Hello everybody, 'tis I, the Rumpled One, and Cat One just decided to come into the picture here too. Okay, book review. The Power of Place by Winifred Gallagher. Yeah, I read her other book, Wrapped. This book was an earlier book of hers, and it's a little tough to read, slow to read, still a good book. I'd like to share a couple things with you. It's interesting because this book, The Power of Place, how our surroundings shape our thoughts, emotions, and actions. It's kind of one of those things where you go, well, yeah, but she analyzes it in depth. Like I said, it's kind of a tough read. You might want to read it if you're interested in this kind of stuff. Most people probably aren't, though. Okay, I'm going to get to near the end of the book, page 203. I'm going to jump right in here in the middle of a paragraph. My prescription for inner turmoil is spending a minimum of 4 hours alone in a natural area with no activities or distractions, he says. Just sitting quietly in that atmosphere allows most people to process a lot of emotions and issues they haven't been dealing with. Modern society focuses almost exclusively on the value of intellect and professionalism, which requires a lot of repression and denial. Both as individuals and as a culture, we can forget about some really important things, including identity and self-worth. So we need periods that allow us to get in touch with who we are and what really matters. We can also enhance the continuity between conscious and unconscious mind by keeping track of the natural symbols that appear in our dreams and reinforcing them by adding plants, animals, or whatever to our settings. We spend all but an hour a day indoors, estranged from the vast mind of meaning, art, metaphor, and teaching that we evolved in. In terms of the quality of life, that has got to matter. So if you've been watching my videos, you know why I chose that paragraph, what matters. But thinking about that, sitting alone for hours. I usually don't sit alone for hours. I might be alone, but usually I'm doing something around the ranch here, or I'm reading a book, or talking on the phone, making something to eat, working in the, usually always something, but just sitting. Maybe take those 5-minute mini vacations that I sometimes video. But I can see what she's talking about. In fact, I can feel it. Maybe I don't need to sit 4 hours because I'm out here in nature. I get the opportunity to just soak it all in, not have those distractions. I mean, every now and then in a video I'll go, look at that, planes flying over. Just don't get that kind of stimulation or noise. Now let's move over a couple pages to page 205. And once again, I'm going to jump in the middle of a paragraph. The same kind of process continues today. If you get, say, a snowmobile, suddenly you think about nature differently. The Eskimo people are hunting more caribou and shooting a lot more. The young people often just for fun, simply because they have this vehicle and there are many less obvious effects. For example, some recent data from the Canadian Yukon Territory showed that Eskimo men are getting shorter. It turns out that the long hours they spend hunting and traveling over rough terrain and snowmobiles fuse their vertebrae. The men studied had also lost 30% of their muscle strength because these modern labor-saving devices reduce the amount of exercise they get. The point is that you have to be careful what you invent because it also invents you. I think that last sentence is pretty powerful. You have to be careful what you invent. I mean, you can take it to the extreme of one of those science fiction magazines where they make the doomsday bomb or whatever. But, I mean, when you think about it, you know, most of us have these contraptions that we carry around called smartphones nowadays that, I mean, you almost everywhere you go, you see the people looking at their smartphone. And walk into a coffee shop, even in small communities, half the people are doing this. They're not interacting with the people next to them. I mean, you know, they're on their social network as opposed to socializing. I mean, talk about inventing something that invents you. I mean, think about it. How much does this thing change your life, change your behaviors? You ever see people at a table, they're all around their phones instead of interacting with each other? Okay, finally, I'd like to share another thought. Once again, I'm going to jump in the middle of a paragraph on page 211. When you're in an atmosphere that offers few distractions and allows you to experience your ability to do things you weren't sure you could, says Kaplan, it's much easier to figure out what matters and what doesn't, and to make some changes in your life. I mean, when you think about it, how often do you put yourself in a situation where you're not really sure of the outcome? I mean, where you test yourself, challenge yourself, stretch yourself. You know, do something for the first time. A lot of people are afraid because they think they're going to fail. But if this atmosphere of few distractions, then you figure out what matters and what doesn't. I mean, also in this book, in another area, they talked about people that go to those, I don't know, adventure camps or whatever, and they get out in nature, and then they decide that they want to incorporate nature in their life. Mostly people that live in urban areas, big cities. I remember one Gary Larson cartoon. This kid was like holding on to his mom and pointing. He said, "That's okay, honey, it's a tree." And the poor kid never saw a tree before. But anyway, The Power of Place by Winifred Gallagher. You know, if this type of thing interests you, definitely get the book. I wouldn't say it's a must-read, but it was a good book because I like this kind of stuff. So I hope you enjoyed.